Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I'm a comic book artist, writer, creator, and I share my creative process here with you on the internet. If you'd like to support this channel, get additional bonus live streams at least once, if not twice a month, see my comic book artwork before anybody else, get tons of behind-the-scenes features, you can sign up for my Patreon, become a Patreon subscriber at patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to see the best of my social media posts delivered right to your inbox once a month, work in progress gifts, I also post a few comic book pages for you guys as well. You can go to newsletter.jeremy.net. I also give away a free digital sketchbook with when you sign up. You can go over to newsletter.jeremy.net, sign up over there. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my books, or if you read digitally on Comixology or a Kindle, you go to amazon.jeremy.net. You can pick up physical copies of my books, such as my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods, a psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. You can pick up volume 1 of my current series, Morning Star, Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. It's an 8-issue series. This volume has issues 1 through 4. And also, you can go to jeremy.net, which is my main homepage, where you can pick up the last 4 issues of Morning Star, including issue 8 of the final issue of the series, just recently completed. That's over there on jeremy.net. All right. And speaking of the final issue of Morning Star, I realize, I've got orders coming in already. Let me switch here. Change up my lighting just a little extra light there. Back to the overhead camera. Haven't got the bugs worked out to have this high enough where it's spotlighting my table. I mean, so it's out of my face and out of the camera range, but still not low enough. I really should just get a DSLR, but them joints is pricey. But anyway. So, final issue of Morning Star. There's an option for anyone who wants to order the comic where you can also purchase a version with a sketch on the back, because each issue is a sketch cover. And I'm going to do a sketch for a good friend who ordered one, who's been a supporter for a long time. So I'm going to do a sketch on the back of this cover. However, before I start with the sketching, I am going to do a few test marks because I'm using some new brushes. In talks with my buddy Trevor, talking with him in the chat, he's long recommended the Winsor Newton Series 7s, and I bought a set of them, but the tips were shorter than I really liked. They weren't giving me the snap that I wanted, and I realized the difference. It's so subtle. But anyway, this here is a Winsor Newton Series 7. I don't know if you can see the brush number on there. Probably not. But it's a number 2. And the difference with this one is this one just says Winsor Newton Series 7 Finest Sable number 2 brush. And then the other one that I have over here, this one is a Series 7 number 2, but it says miniature on it. And as you can see, if I compare the tips, the one that says miniature has a much smaller tip. Now, normally, that would be a good thing. Let's see if I can make this a little bit clearer by putting the sketchbook underneath it. So normally, I think it would be a good thing to have a small tip on these because it allows me to get more detail in. The problem being is that just the type of stroke that it gives you and the control with these smaller tips just isn't as much. Like the brushes that I normally use for inking, see if I've got any of these laying around. Trying to open my pencil case without spilling pencils and brushes all over the table. So these are the number 2. Put this down for a second. So the blue brush here, this is a number 2 Scholastic Wonder White round. These are the inexpensive brushes I usually get from Dick Blick. And if we compare the tips on all of these, let me hold them about equal to the ferrule so that little metal part, get them kind of evened out. Let's see. Amar's in the chat. He said, I was hoping to pop in before I go shopping. Hope everything is okay. You know what? It's all good in my world. I'm having a good weekend. Get ready to get back to some traditional inking. And I'm going to be trying out some new brushes. Thanks for popping in, man. So as you can see here, the white one is about as tall as the regular Raphael series, not Raphael, the regular Series 7 Winsor & Newton. And both of them are almost twice as long as the miniature version. And that longer, narrow point just gives me a lot of nice control over the brush that I find with the shorter one I just don't get. So I tried inking a couple of pieces with the short one. I didn't really enjoy it. So I went ahead, invested some money, and got the longer one. But in addition to that, I was watching, there's a comic book artist, Sean Crystal. He's got a YouTube channel, Ink Pulp Podcast. And I've been listening to him for a long time. He's been doing some inking demos on his YouTube channel. And in those demos, whenever I see somebody inking, even though I always tell people it's not the tools that you're using, it's the person who's actually controlling them. But when I see experienced artists using a particular brush, I will always make note if I see the effect they're getting. I'm like, that works nice. So he was working with a Raphael. I have never in my life used a Raphael brush. But I took a note. He said he was using a Raphael. I think he was using a size 3. So I think I ended up just getting the exact brush that he had. And I wanted to try it out. So what I'm going to be doing here is, before I start on drawing the sketch cover, I'm going to do a couple of test marks and doodle on my, this is a mixed media sketchbook. So it says, it's a Strathmore mixed media. And, the surface is thick enough and durable enough. It's pretty similar to just drawing on Bristol. It's a thicker cardstock paper. So this way I can draw in ink without worries of it bleeding through, worries about, damaging the sketchbook, damaging the paper. It's good, sturdy paper. I can ink on it. I'm just going to do some test marks and some test scribbles in ink on this. And then I'm going to pencil and sketch out the sketch cover and then get into it. Get a little sip of coffee. Feels nice to be doing some traditional again, because I have not touched traditional in quite a while. Damn. Tip of this Raphael does not want to come off, which is good. It means it's keeping the brushes nice and secure. I really do I started holding on to these little brush covers like a pack rat. And I just, now when I have them, I toss them into a little container and just hold on to them, because they always end up falling off. You end up losing them somewhere. And then whenever you have to go somewhere, or just anytime you have to transport a brush anywhere, putting it in a work bag or a pencil case or whatever, you're always worried you're going to mess up the tip. So these things help protect them. All right. I got all my water set up. The one thing that I did not set up before starting the live stream was pouring out my ink, because I didn't want to start drying out right away. All right. I'm trying to figure out what I did with that Wonder White. I feel like it just vanished from my drawing table. It'll pop up somewhere. All right, let's get a little, first let me get my brushes a little moist. Start with the Winsor Newton. Shake up the jar a little bit. Just off camera here, I've got a little inkwell. Well, this is the inkwell. I've got a little bottle cap that I use to store my inks in. You know, as a side note, completely different topic, but I mentioned the camera. Trying to find a good position for the camera that's overhead. I saw on somebody's live stream the other day. Can't remember who, but they actually did something which was so simple. I was like, that's ingenious, because I love elegant, simple solutions. But they just took a tripod and put the tripod on the table. That way, it's always parallel to the surface, because it's what it's sitting on. Then you just flip. There's a little thing on so you can flip it and have the camera facing downward. I was like, I need to try that, because I got a tripod buried around somewhere. You know what? And it's actually pretty handy that I'm going to draw some test marks, because I need to figure out what exactly I want to draw for this this picture on the back of the cover. And I was thinking about drawing Michael from Morningstar, because I've drawn Lucifer plenty of times. So step one, you know what? I need to add a little bit of water to this ink, because it is nice and rich and black, because I haven't opened it in a while, but it's a little bit on the thick side. And most artists do their damnedest to get nice, thick inks. I like my ink a little bit runny. Like, I will give up, because I've spent most of my life making artwork in the digital age. By the time I was in college, I was using Photoshop regularly. So I'm used to bumping up and beefing up my blacks in Photoshop if they aren't rich enough. Whereas, traditionally you're doing your best to get your artwork to get camera ready. From about college on, I always felt like you do what you can to get it looking as good as possible, and then you can always clean up and touch up digitally. I'll tell you right now, one thing I am not pleased about is that this thing is a little bit frayed. So what I'm going to do is take a nail clipper, and I'm just going to clip out the stray brush that's offending. Who knows? That might be a horrible idea. It might destroy the integrity of the brush, but I've never heard anybody say anything about it one way or the other. I just find that that's how I deal with the stray ink marks, or stray brushes, stray bristles sticking out of the brush. Yeah. So this is not 100% jet black, but it's nice and fluid and soupy the way I like it. So just making some test marks, seeing what the brush can do, running through its paces. It takes a minute for the water to even out and kind of distribute in the whole thing. So it's actually giving me a little bit too watery. But at a certain point, usually within 5 minutes, it kind of settles in, and where the ink fully absorbs the water. and it gets sort of distributed throughout the entire body of fluid. See, this is why I need a DSLR, because I'm looking on the screen at this while I'm doing it. And the fact that this screen, like, I feel like you should be able to see like this close and really see the marks as I'm making it. But I can't zoom in that close because, as you can see from the little headshot of me, that's pretty close to the paper. It's like I'd be drawing with the camera right on my chest. So I need to get that DSLR. Plus, I mean, I'm not drawing particularly large. These are just thumbnails. So I'm going to make a few more marks with this. And then I'm going to switch to the Raphael just to see what it can do. Try and decide which one to use. Meanwhile, I'm sort of sketching out what I'm thinking for the sketch cover. I'm thinking Michael having his bowler hat kind of canted on the side of his head, which in the final issue of Morningstar, he's not wearing that thing at all. Mainly because he got shot into a river, his hat fell off. Let's see here. Ballpoint's in the chat. Yo, how you doing, Ballpoint? Testing out some new brushes here. Working with a Winsor Newton, recommended by our boy Trevor. And then I'm going to try a Raphael brush that I saw Sean Crystal drawing with on his YouTube channel. All right, let's switch it up here now. Ballpoint asks how's everything, and things are good. You know, I was mentioning at the top of the chat the issue 8 of Morningstar. They came in. I'm really happy with them. I made an announcement in my newsletter letting people know that both the print and digital versions were available, and a longtime supporter bought a full set of all 4. Issues 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, and 8. The last 4 issues of Morningstar. So just to say thank you to him. Normally I charge extra for doing the sketch version. It's like you're buying a commission. But for him, I'm going to do a piece because he's somebody who's been supporting the series for years from its earliest infancy. And I'm testing out some brushes before I start sketching the new piece in there. But yeah, weekend's been good. I've been experimenting. I didn't get much artwork done all weekend because I was cleaning my office, and it still has a long way to go. But I needed to adjust some stuff on my desktop, my computer. I have like a cable zoo for like stuff connecting different cables to my monitor and my computer, and I was just trying to clean up the cables, get stuff off of the desk that didn't need to be there. I do believe that it is hard to create when you're dealing with a lot of clutter. And my workspace has been very cluttered for a very long time. So I am way overdue to clean things up. And I got a small portion of cleaning done so far. So now I am switching to the Raphael. This one's a little bit larger. It's a size 3. Looks like it comes to a pretty nice tip. Already, I feel like the lines that it are giving me, and I don't know how much of this is also the ink not being as thick as it was when I started, but it feels like it's giving me, even though the other brush was a number 2 and this is a number 3, it feels like it's giving me smaller points, and it's also giving me a little bit more of that dry brush kind of ragged feel. Maybe I just need to get it wetter. And this is the interesting thing with brushes. There's a little bit in here where I don't know how much of it is the character of the brush and how much of it is the way that it's holding the ink in comparison to the other one. So I'm making short strokes and I'm pressing harder. It's giving me, pretty comparable lines. I can definitely ink with this bad boy. Now, I think that one of the things I did not do when I was drawing with the first brush was sitting and intentionally making small, delicate lines. So I'm going to go back with the Winsor Newton and try that. Also, believe it or not, I might think, oh, this brush is giving me better lines, when the test marks that I was making with this first brush may have warmed up my hand to the degree that the test marks I'm making with the second brush are better because my hand has a little bit more control. And I'm trying to be aware of that as I'm looking and seeing, trying to get a feeling for what these things can do. I mean, already my instinct is that the Raphael feels like it gives me more of what I want. It also gives me like a slight ragged dry brush, which I like. I'm a fan of Eric Canetti's artwork. I watch his live streams, and I like those lines that he has. I'm not trying to necessarily ape his line, but I like his brush line. But I see a lot of this in Sean Crystal's work too. He was the one who I discovered the Raphael brushes from, or at least I was aware of Raphael brushes, but he was the person who I saw using them and saying, "Oh, I like the work you get there." But what I see when he does it is his dry brush is very intentional. He's using it in a textural manner, whereas with me, it's like the whole thing I'm drawing just has a looser, chalkier feel to it. So I don't know how well you guys can see the marks I'm putting in here, but it really is just me just drawing basic primitive shapes, ellipses, cylinders. In fact, that should be my my test pattern. It should just be, drawing cubes, drawing spheres, drawing pyramids, and cylinders. Just drawing all of these primitive shapes that make up just about everything that we draw. I'm going to switch back to the other brush because I want to see what happens with my hand a little bit more warmed up and with me being a little bit more intentional about the amount of pressure that I'm using. Because I've said this before, the amount of pressure that you both push down on the paper with and the amount of pressure that you grip the brush with greatly influences the marks you make and the amount of control you have. And I firmly believe that you get more control the lighter you hold the tool. And you also, I think, it relieves some of the tension and pressure that you put on your the tendons in your hand. Let's see here. Ballpoint says, ask, can you get a little bit closer? Yeah. Let's see. I am not the main feature here, so I don't care if, you know what, the camera's just going to cover my face. That's going to be it. It's not a big deal. I just need to bring this down. Let's bring it down a little bit more. There we go. Hopefully that is a little bit better. And Ballpoint, thank you for asking. That's actually one of the things that really helps when I'm live streaming is just if there's little things that are off technically. Sometimes there's things that are out of my control, like for instance, the damn autofocus on this thing. But if there's things where I can make the viewing experience for you guys a little bit better by just doing things like that, it's really good to hear you guys just chime in and say, hey, can you adjust this, move this closer, change the lighting? Because I can just be here drawing and off in my own space and not paying attention or just rambling on like I do, when there's a very simple change that I can do that will make this a better experience for you guys. So, chiming in like that definitely helps. So thank you. For as many years as I've been doing this, you'd think that I would have it down like a pro by now. But to be honest, the thing with the camera being high up, it is less about me being vain and wanting this camera to not be in my face. And it is more the fact that sometimes when it's here, my instinct when I draw, I move around a lot. I mean, I talk with my hands, which, actually, oddly enough, I was going to say, when I'm on live streaming, because I'm using my hands to draw, I don't do that as much. But then I looked up and saw myself gesturing on the camera. So yes, I still talk with my hands. But more importantly, aside from rotating and changing the position of the paper or this page I'm working on, I'll be drawing and I'll just move my head to one side. And, I'll just, how it is. You look at it sideways, look at this way, crane your neck down. I move around a lot. When there's normally not a camera right here, I move around a lot. And sometimes I accidentally bump the camera while I'm live streaming. So that's the reason why I tend to try and have it up above. But if this gives you guys a better view, stick with this. As a matter of fact, let me see. Well, I was going to say I can slide this over to the right a little bit, but then all I do is I end up moving my head to the right. So now Ballpoint says you're good. You just want to see the lines a bit better. All right, cool, fantastic. I'm glad it looks good. All right, so I'm probably gonna ink the sketch with the Winsor Newton. With the Raphael, but I'm gonna come back and just play with the Winsor Newton a little bit more. Unfortunately, being a cat owner means that there's cat fur on everything. And somehow I set a brush down, I pick it up again, and there's cat hair on it. And there's another bristle that is sticking out just a tiny bit. Yeah, you guys probably can't see that. But there is one bristle that is, oh, there it is. OCD of me, but you see that one guy that's just sticking out there? It's driving me nuts. Before I clip it off, I'm just going to try re-wetting it and trying to. There's a technique of you put the bristle in water, and then once it's moist, you roll it, you spin it as you dry it, and hopefully that kind of shapes it into the rest of the bristle. So I'm going to try that before I end up clipping the clipping the thing off. Up, now I've got more of them sticking out. Well, I will tell you that so far my experience with the Winsor Newton is that they don't keep points as well as I would like. But again, this is my first time using it. It's still being broken in. And that is true of some brushes. Sometimes you need to brush them in. And some brushes need to be conditioned. I mean, they're made out of hair. And personally, I prefer to clean them with Murphy's soap oil. But for a long time, I was using, what is it, VO5? I was using just normal hair conditioner to clean them because it was just, no, what I did is I mixed, it was 50-50 shampoo. No, it was a shampoo conditioner combo because it's hair, so you clean it with shampoo. That just made sense to me. So I will tell you that now I'm intentionally drawing with a lighter touch, and I'm gripping the brush lighter. And while I might have been a little fussy about the bristles sticking together when I started, it's giving me very crisp lines, more crisp than the Raphael. And it's interesting that I was moments ago just bitching about the bristles not staying together, because it's interesting that for a brush with bristles that were fraying and splaying about, that these lines are so crisp. They are very, very crisp. Let's see here. Bob Point says, I hear you, man. Artist problems, I suppose. Yeah, you know what? If the worst thing that happens to me today is I have to battle with a brush that's with bristles that are splayed out, then I am a very lucky person. That is like first world and a half problems. Yeah, I'm mimicking some of the stuff that I was drawing with the Raphael, and they just feel, this feels very fluid, very crisp. Now this might be a little bit boring for you guys, just watching me make, all these primitive shapes, but this is, it's good for warming up your hand. It's good for warming up the brush. It's good for developing brush control. And if you try inking with a brush and you find that it's difficult for you, you have problems, honestly, filling up a page in a sketchbook with a bunch of primitive shapes is a great exercise. Filling it up with a bunch of cylinders, cubes, spheres, pyramids in ink, you can, you'll start seeing that because here's the thing, these shapes, you can use these to construct human bodies, animals, buildings, environments, vehicles, what have you. You can build so many things just by drawing these simple shapes. But if you have trouble drawing these simple shapes in ink or in pencil, then that should tell you that you're going to have trouble drawing the more complex things that you're trying to deal with, trying to execute. So it's something to maybe take into consideration, is spending some time working on primitive forms. And working on them in ink is just a chance for you to say, all right, this is a way for me to practice just control of the tool. Because I've realized for a long time, by the way, I see Ballpoint, you got a question there. Go ahead and fire away in the chat. What I was going to say is, for a long time, I had a a lot of difficulty inking with a brush. It took me forever to learn how to do it. Part of it was me learning enough control of my hand to even be able to draw well enough to control a brush. So there's two things, which is you may not have enough drawing control in general to draw with a brush, and then there's learning to control that specific tool. I mean, the way that you make marks with a, ooh, that's a little too much. Got this guy a little too wet. There's a way you make marks with ink that's very different than the way you make marks with a pencil. There's ways you make marks with a brush that are very different than the way you make marks with a pen, crow quill, what have you. Yeah, this is still very, very wet. You can see by how thick these lines are. Immediately, this thing goes from being very, very precise to drawing with a Sharpie. But yeah, I mean, now that I'm looking at this, these both give me really good lines, just different types of lines. And I think you have to be a little bit more conscious of the thick to thin when working with the Winsor Newton. But I definitely like this a lot more than the smaller Winsor Newtons that I was using before. I'm trying to remember what it was I was inking. I did an ink drawing with them not too long ago. Oh, it was the Doctor Strange piece. And while I'm happy with how the Doctor Strange piece came out, I felt like I was battling with the brushes a little bit. So let's see. Yeah, Ballpoint, if you're in the chat, whenever you want to throw your question there, feel free. So now I'm just, pardon me, I got a little frog in my throat. I'm just working out the basic primitive shapes for this this bust I'm going to draw. And I think in order to make sure you can see Michael's head well, I'm going to tip his hat in the opposite direction of the way I normally have it tipped. It's a bit of a cheat, but otherwise the brim, I changed the shot so you're going to be looking down at him, and I don't want the brim to obscure his face. I think that will work. And normally I like doing dozens and dozens of thumbnails and just drawn until I have every single piece mapped out. But I think for this, that's all I need is just what is the angle, what's the shape. Really simple. So now looking down on him a little bit, maybe him looking up a little bit, kind of serious. Maybe shadow on this left side of the face. Real simple. All right, so you rinse out the brushes, switch to pencil. You know, I am always stunned whenever I sit down to draw how quickly the time flies. Already 40 minutes of you guys just watch me make a bunch of test strokes to break in a brush. But you know what? I think that is my curse. I am a slow and methodical person. I tend to take my time and just work my way through stuff. Oh, I realize what's happening. There is actually cat hair on the little strip of paper towel I have at the top of my desk that I'm cleaning my brushes on. And that is what's causing me to get hair every single time I come back to clean off the brush. All right. So Ballpoint in the chat says, I want to include watercolor and ink finger studies in a sketchbook / art project I'm working on. Is this a good idea or bad idea? Your thoughts on this? I think it's a good idea. I mean, whenever I think of an idea, the main question I ask myself is, what is the downside to it? And if I can't find any downside, then I'm like, just go for it. The fact of the matter is like, I mean, if you want to do ink studies and watercolor, you know, if you want to do watercolor and ink finger studies, unless somebody actively says, if there's a reason to not do it, if there's restrictions to the program, this is something that you're doing for yourself, put in whatever you want. And I mean, if you were making a portfolio for an expressed reason, like you were trying to get concept art work or something like that, you know, that's one of those things where it's a matter of what's the restrictions, or what's the purpose of that particular thing. If you're making a, you know, like I said, if you're making a portfolio, then you want to show consistency of work. And maybe having a bunch of different styles or media isn't necessarily the best choice. But in this case, if you're just doing an art project for yourself, or if it's something that you want to publish and you want to make a variety of things, then yeah, go for it. It's your work. Do what you want. Let me ask you this. I'm going to throw a question back at you. What are you afraid of, like in terms of consequences? What are you afraid would be bad about including these things? Because I don't see any downside to putting in, you know, watercolor or ink finger studies. So when you're thinking about this and you're like, maybe I shouldn't do this, why did that thought occur to you? Right now, I'm just blocking in the basic proportions of the head. And I have to remember to try and make his head a little bit more square, because my default facial drawings tend to actually be kind of a thinner, longer head shape. And Michael has a blockier, kind of like Punisher, Frank Castle, kind of a Luke Cage. He's got a Luke Cage build. It's big and beefy. You don't want to mess with him. It's like Terry Crews with an afro. You know, and stuff like this, you know, I try not to be overly critical when I'm in my sketching phase and just sort of draw and let it come out. But the thing that I notice is just how many lines it takes for me to get to something that I'm happy with. And I want to improve my ability to get to the meat of the drawing in fewer lines. Before I get too much into drawing this face, I need to block in that hat. So what I'm thinking, really a hat, I'm just treating it like it's another cylinder. So you've got a sphere and I'm putting a cylinder on top of it. But because I'm going to have it angled, I'm changing it so as opposed to his head, which is angled this way, I'm going to have the cylinder angled off to that side. So let's say that I make the brow not the brim, but the brow, like just the where it wraps around the actual surface of the head. Let's put that right here. I'll have it coming off to that side, and it's a bowler hat, so I'm not going to have it going way, way up. Just up a little bit, just off of his head a little bit. And then I can have it curve around in an ellipse this way. He's almost got kind of a Bonnie and Clyde gangster look. So let's see here. So Ballpoint's response to my question of what, in terms of including those mixed media in the sketchbook project, he said, just thought something like that wouldn't hold any value to. Well, I'll throw that question back at you. What value for you personally in terms of making it does adding that those pieces give to you? And again, this is not me trying to turn around and discourage you from doing it. It's just me drilling further down into the question of your motivations. If you're afraid that it doesn't add any value, what is it about wanting to do it that makes you want to do it? Is it just that you want to play with those mediums? Because that alone is a valid enough reason to do it. It's like, you just like, I want to experiment with this media. Or is there possibly any other reason why you wanted to add those other media in there? I see Amaris is in the chat. She says, my baby sister just published her first comic. I'm a very proud big sister. Well, congratulations to you and your baby sister. She says, sorry I'm late. You know what? We definitely don't we don't give out tardy slips in this class. So you are more than welcome to pop in whenever. That's the beauty of the replay. But I'm glad you made it, and congratulations to your sister. So now this is starting to feel a bit more like the character. I mean, he definitely has a big, beefy linebacker build. So let's see here. Shaping his chin a little bit. His nose is a little bit broader. Let's pull that out some. The challenge for me is finding just the right amount of underside of his nose to show, because his nose is turned up a little bit, but we're also looking down at him. So it's really just a question of planes. For instance, you know, if we're looking at something like this brick, let's say that this is right sticking off of someone's face. Like, for instance, let's say that my phone over here is the face, and this is the nose coming off of the face. You know, normally you'll see the underside of the nose when you're looking at somebody. That's how you can see their nostrils. But when you're looking down at them, you're seeing less of it. So for me, it's just a matter of finding the right amount, because you're not looking so far down that you're looking down at their nose. You're only seeing the top of it. You're still seeing the underside, but just a little bit. So I'm trying to play with just how much of that underside you're seeing. It's not much, but it's just getting just the right amount. So Ballpoint says in the question of like why to add these other media, he says, I don't know, I never thought of that. Well, I think if you drill down on that question, it's not like I don't know what your time frame for finishing this project is, but if you have time to think about it, then mull it over. And in fact, maybe even do some of the ink pieces while you're mulling it over. You know, it doesn't mean you have to stop production until you know exactly what and why you're going to do everything. Um, I mean, for me, even drawing comics, I will draw comics and I have pages that when I get down to, I've already penciled them, inked them, lettered them, done gray tones. And as I'm looking at the end, at the final product, I'll be going through and trying to figure out, you know, what the final shape of the project is. And I'll be like, you know what? I don't need these pages. Or I need different pages. I need to go back and redraw either certain panels or redraw scenes, draw new pages. That happens. And I think the same can be true for a sketchbook project. You may start developing it and you don't have all the answers. You don't know exactly why. You know, you said you don't know for sure why it is that you want to include these other media. Go ahead and try making some anyway. Just see how it looks with them in there. Over time, as you make them, you may figure out, you may realize, oh, this is the reason why I wanted to include these. Or you may start making them and you may make 2 or 3 of them and say, you know what, this doesn't add what I wanted. So I'm not going to, and I'm either going to remove these or I'm going to make new ink pieces that fulfill what the real purpose of why I want them. Because sometimes you figure out what you want in the act of making. So don't let not knowing stop you. I am a big believer in planning. You know, I thumbnail the hell out of everything and I try to figure stuff out up front because that's my personality. But I also do realize that A, that's not true for everyone. Some people do need to figure stuff out as they go. And B, even for myself, so as much of an OCD planner as I am, that I will frequently, I've got my plan, but I can't remember who it was. Was it MacArthur who said that plans rarely survive first contact with the enemy? Well, I think that that's true in the arts as well. You make very detailed plans and then you start making stuff and you're like, oh, snap, that's not at all what I wanted. Or this is what I wanted, but it's not working and I need to change. So it sounds like you're somebody who wants to plan either because you are a planner or because you've been told by people like me who are planners that you should plan everything out. And what I will tell you is that there is a middle path. Make a plan, but be willing to deviate from it. You sound like you want to make these, you want to make these ink studies and these watercolor studies and include them in your project, but you don't exactly know why. So make a couple of test pieces, and while you're making the test pieces, spend some time meditating on the why. Hopefully, in the process of making a few pieces, you'll figure out the reason. So yeah, be open to experimenting and changing what you're doing, and be patient with yourself. That is something that I still work on. Sometimes when things don't go the way I have them planned, I get frustrated at myself. And I have to remind myself, it's okay to change plans. It's okay to have to recalibrate and figure out, I thought I was going one way and then it turns out I'm going another. That's okay. And hopefully you can do that as well without beating yourself up. I hope that that's helpful and useful to you. Let's see here. Amaris mentions, just thought I'd share my sister's accomplishment with the community. Off to teach watercolor class. All right, fantastic. See, there's another person doing some watercolor right there. Well, have a great class, Amaris. I hope that everything goes well. I hope that your students are inspired and do some fun and creative stuff. Let's see here. Ballpoint says, it's like the Mike Tyson quote. He says, it's like saying everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Mike Tyson. That it is exactly that. Exactly. And it is also funny because there's many times when I have equated the creative process to getting punched in the face. It's not how hard you can hit, it's how hard you can get hit and get back up again. We're all about the boxing metaphors today. You know, I do wish that I were much faster because I really would like to show the whole stream of me finishing this piece. In fact, I mean, like me going ahead and inking it. In fact, I don't think that I have anything that I have to do right away. So I think I will start inking this piece and we'll just see if I can finish it in a reasonable amount of time. Get these eyes facing the same direction. Let's see here. Let's see. Shamari is in the chat, and she says, "Are those stickers?" If you're talking about up here on the top, I think that's what you're asking. If you're talking about this, this is not the sticker. This is my comic book Morningstar. The back cover of each of them is a sketch cover. So the whole surface is a cardstock cover. And I have them available on my site, jeremy.net. The links, by the way, the links for all these are in the chat. But anyway, the back cover is just printed. It's blank except for the logo. So it's not a sticker that's stuck on anything. It's just left, it's printed blank so that I can do what I'm doing here, drawing a sketch cover for somebody that bought a full set of issues 5, 6, 7, and 8. I hope that's what you were asking, and if it's not, feel free to ask clarifying questions so I can get to whatever it was you were asking. That is one of the downsides of the digital, is that, oftentimes, we can be talking and we don't necessarily understand the nuance of someone's asking a really simple question, but, I may miss the context, or maybe sometimes people will be asking about something I was talking about earlier, and then I don't answer the right question. So, but I try to keep an eye on the chat, and I like to keep it interactive. So let's see here. Shamari says, "Cool. Well, thank you. I'm glad you dig it." And Ballpoint says, "There's an idea, man. I could see it as one." So now it's just a matter of drawing his shirt collar, because he is dressed. I designed this character's costume after the actor Gary Cooper. He was in a pretty famous Western called High Noon. And he's a sheriff in a town full of cowards. And there's a train coming in at noon with a guy who wants to gun him down. And he's like the one good man in a town full of people that are just cowardice. No one wants to stand up for the town. And I designed Michael after that costume. So it's just a matter of getting that collar, and I don't have to draw the full vest that the character wears in the movie, mainly because you're only seeing the bust. So really, I just need to give you the sense that he's got a collared shirt, a straight tie, and a little bit of that vest coming down. Fill out back of his hat, just define it a little bit more. Draw in a little bit of the hat band going around. And I think I'm gonna, oops. Just need to decide whether I want to leave this hat all in black or make this upper part you would think after drawing 8 issues of a series that I would be like, I know exactly how I want the characters' costumes to look, but I often shift them around as I go. In fact, I've often said that sometimes the best time to do character designs is when a series is completely done. Like, I feel if I really wanted to get characters' costumes to look consistent, I would thumbnail out like the entire series, however long it is, and then look at all of the different panels. Like, look at the panels that are, I don't know, splash pages or just dramatic shots, and just work out all of the character designs there. So it's like, I know, like, if I may realize, oh wait, if I'm going to have their costume with 2 guns instead of 1, then I need to make that consistent throughout the series. Or I may look at actions they do and it'll help me decide, oh, this character needs a sword on their belt. Or I can just figure out all the things from how it actually gets used in the story. Which, again, in theory, the script should help with that. Believe it or not, I am flipping through old issues of Morningstar and just looking at it to see what I did with this hat in past issues. Yeah, it looks more like I leave it open. When I say open, I mean making the underside of the hat black, making the hat band a light color, and then making the dome, like in here, the dome of the hat black, just because, like, making that, so that this would be the color of the hat. This would be black because it's facing away from the light. But his hat's not black. No, there's some issues where I drew it black, but that's when they're inside of a cave. You guys are getting a little bit of a preview of the graphic novel here. Big gunfight between angels and demons. Yeah, no, some issues I draw the hat as black. Like I said, I just change it up depending on what I need. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna experiment. I'm gonna make it black, and I'm gonna intentionally put some hatching right here in the middle to give that sense of it turning away. So it's gonna be black, 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 a little bit of dry brush in here, and then black on the edges. And we'll see how it looks. Hopefully it will not be a dumpster fire. A little bit. His hair, he's got kind of a puffy fro. And I think I'm going to give him a little bit of a fade. Lock in some shadows. So mainly right now, I'm just kind of concerned about lighting. I'm just trying to keep the lighting consistent. This ear is going to be mostly in shadow, so I may come back and just do that all in hatching. Yeah, I think I can ink this now. So let's see here. Ballpoint says trench coats are the new capes for comic book hero. So I think if the reader doesn't blink, it doesn't spoil the art, the artistry, the story. Close enough is close enough, in my opinion. I tend to agree with you. That said, I aim to make things as well thought out, both in terms of character design, story, all of those elements. That's my head bumping into the thing that I just telling you I keep doing. I try to make things as well thought out as I can while allowing room mentally as well as on the page for things to not be perfect. So I agree that close enough is close enough, but I aim for spot on. All right, let's ink this bad boy and get out of here. Quick. So what was I going to use? Let's try the Raphael. All right. So the first thing that I start with when I'm inking a piece is I usually start with oh crap. I need my little inking glove. I haven't used this in a while. It's been so long since I've been doing any inking. So I just keep a little cotton glove. These are kind of the gloves that people, if they're working on cell animation, that they would wear to keep getting fingerprints or their hand, the oils on the animation cell. And all this does is it makes me less likely to smear the ink as I go. Because as opposed to working from top to bottom, left to right, I start by inking the outline of the whole figure. That gives me, this was a tip given me by my buddy Carl Altstetter. Take a drink. And he calls it a holding line. And it's just a strong silhouette to help define the whole piece. And already I have to tell myself as I'm doing this, loosen up. Let your hand just glide across the surface. You don't need to grip it with a death grip. Might make things a little bit easier, actually, even though I'm trying to do an outline of the whole piece. I think it'll give me something a little bit better, more consistent if I go ahead and do the whole hat brim, because this is a long line going across the whole piece, so it's probably better to just do this all at once. In that case, might as well do the hatband too. Try to add a little curve at the end there to give that sense of it wrapping around. Right on this side. Looser brush strokes for his hair. When I designed him as a character, I was kind of designing him after Jamie Foxx in Django Unchained, but before he got cleaned up, when he had kind of the real nappy afro at the beginning, like that part when he throws off the when all the other slaves are chained up, when he throws that coat off, when he throws the blanket off to grab some clothing, and when he throws it off, he's just majestic and looks like a superhero. That was the look that I wanted Michael to have. Okay, my ink is getting a little bit thick, and before I add more ink to it, I'm going to add a single drop of water, try to mix that in. So I added a single drop when I started. Now I'll add one more drop, and you'd be surprised how much a single drop of water can change the viscosity of the ink when you're just using like 10 drops worth of ink. Stir it up a little bit. Now see, the challenge for me here is getting a nice variety of line, because part of the reason why I intentionally use different sized brushes is that it takes a bit of brush control to get a variety of line weights, thicker lines versus thin lines. And while that is kind of the point of using a brush, is that you have a tool that has a wide variety of lines, I would just use a larger brush for thicker lines, and then I would intentionally use a smaller brush for lines inside of the figure. Instead of using one brush and having to be that much more aware of the lines. Hey, I see my buddy Jesse's in the chat. Zeus Toves says, hey man, congrats on getting issue 8 out into the world. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, it feels nice. You know, I've been sort of flailing around in the planning stages of what comes next, but it was nice to get this thing done. I'm doing a ink piece on the sketch cover back of issue 8 right now. But yeah, I mean, Jesse's been there the entire time. I've known Jesse since before I started Morningstar. So he has seen this entire long ass journey. Yeah, man, thank you. I appreciate it. Chrono Rust is in the chat. Says, great work, dude. Thank you. I appreciate it. You know, I really should spend more time just sketching in ink and forcing myself to learn how to get a wider variety of line weights with a single brush. There's a certain point at which you just got to say, all right, there's things that I'm not good at that I need to improve at. My instinct is to want to work from the outside in and finish off the tie. But I realize that then my hand's going to be resting over those areas while I'm inking the face, which I really don't want to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and move on and do the face. Now, even now, my hand is over some of these ink lines, but I'm not as worried about it because of the cotton gloves. I tend to work pretty thin. My inks aren't super wet. And because of that, I'm not as worried about I'm not as worried about smearing it as I would be if I were working with really wet inks. All right, I need to ease back on the eyelash. Why it's gonna look like he's wearing makeup. Let's see here. Jesse says, it's been a pleasure. It has been, man. It's been a pleasure watching you, putting out Encoding Bushido and doing all of the other stories that you've worked on. Watching you put out that anthology. It's nice to have friends that you can cheer on while you guys are, while making these epic creative journeys, because it you know how it is. It's lonely at the drawing board. It's one of the things that I like about doing this live stream. It's nice to have some company. Those epic hours where you're just drawing along. All right, so I'm hitting a little bit of a phase where I can notice that I'm making marks kind of on autopilot as opposed to really paying attention. And it's not something that you guys might notice, But there's a subtle difference between a piece that just sort of comes out and lands versus a piece that really sings. And I'd say that it is an improvement in a piece of artistic, kicking that camera, it's an improvement in a piece of artistic growth that I can capture and notice these things while they're happening. And hopefully be able to correct them. Get it here, get this ear. And I may well come back and do hatching over the entire ear just to knock it back in value since it's on the shadow side. I'm going to start by drawing with it more open line. Something else that I tend to do is, and I get this from figure drawing class, and that's just to jump around the piece. Because I find in figure drawing class that if I just stay in one area and work it, what happens is you get one area that's really good and then the rest of the piece will be kind of crappy. And it's not necessarily that I need the whole piece to have equal amount of detail. In fact, you shouldn't. There are some areas that should be very, very simple that aren't focuses of attention. And you just draw whatever needs to go there and that's it. But what moving around does is it just helps to keep me thinking of the piece as a whole instead of it looking like just an assemblage of facial features, or if I'm drawing full figure, to have it feel like an assemblage of body parts. So that for me is the purpose of jumping around, is just to try and keep thinking about the whole of the piece, whatever it is. So hence me making these lines on this side and then jumping up, doing some hatching in the head and then coming back down. Though while I'm over here, I think I should get into this and just do a little bit of line art in the hat band. And a little bit here at the edge, give a sense of it turning away. Really got to exercise that brush control here. Light, delicate lines. At this point, it's like I am literally holding the brush with just enough. I'm holding it and scraping it against the surface. I'm not even pushing. I'm just dragging the brush. I'm flicking it lightly across the surface. Almost like you're skipping a stone, except you're doing it with your hand. I feel like I made the right eye out a little too far. But you know what? Them's the inks. Square jaw. Little dimple. Oh, sorry about that. Hopefully the stream is back. Something stupid. You guys let me know if I'm back on and you can see me. Believe it or not, I was live streaming and my laptop was unplugged and I just went all the way down to 0 power and it died. But if it came back and you're still able to hear me, then remarkably, it just reconnected and allowed me to just continue where I left off. So, oh, perfect. You know what? I gotta tell you, StreamYard, more than once, I've done something stupid. Like I've left the stream page, I've clicked away from it, and then came back and it was still connected. Like this, literally, my laptop died. I plugged it back in, restarted it, and it was able to keep the stream going. So that's actually pretty impressive to have that kind of interruption and still be able to reconnect. So, you know, kudos to StreamYard. You guys are pretty good. All right. Let's get the camera back on and keep going. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, so we're getting pretty close to the end here, both of the piece and the live stream for the evening, for the day. I think I'm just going to I did not get a particularly large brush for filling in blacks. So I think I may switch to my older brushes for that part here, because that's pretty much where we are at now. It's just filling in some blacks. I'm going to change the direction of this hatching that I had in here. So it feels more like it's wrapping around the neck. And should probably do this outward. So these are going towards the light. Yeah, I got to get used to making thinner marks with this guy, the brush. Of course, I'm using the number 3. I got a number 2 sitting right here. So now I'm going to go ahead and fill in these shapes for the tie and the rest of the vest. So I think the rest of this is just going to be me filling in black. So I'm also going to go ahead and sign it now, so I won't have to worry about resting my hand in a bunch of black ink while I do that. All right. So now just come in here, fill in a bunch of blacks, and we are done. Which is good because it looks like my ink is about done too, starting to dry out. And usually after about an hour, I have to refresh. Even with adding a couple of drops of water, I have to refresh the ink well. Adding fresh ink to it. That's what I mean. Just trying to dig out my number 4 brush. Here it is. Back to the old Wonder Whites. I think I may have to make it a habit of every time I ink, I put down a fresh paper towel for blotting. That's what I'm doing right before I start. When I take my brush out of water, there's a paper towel that I just have sitting underneath a pencil sharpener, so most of it's hanging out. And I will just drag the brush over that to blot off some excess ink, and I'll spin it while I do that to kind of help shape it into a point. But like I said, there's always fur on it from the cats. And I think it's because I just leave that there instead of putting a new sheet down every time I ink. And that might have to be the new strategy going forward. But regardless, I think I am going to have to add some extra ink here because there's just not enough left to fill in all of these blacks, the amount of ink I've got there now. So I think that when I do the Snake Eyes versus Elektra piece, I finished the thumbnails for that, and I was really trying to debate whether I wanted to work on that today or this. I think when I work on that piece, I'm going to use the Winsor Newton so I can see a little bit of comparison between inking with those two different brushes. Let me add a little more ink to the inkwell here. Clean this up a little bit. Try to get the shadows to feather into this little bit of patching on the surface of the hat. Doesn't have to be perfect. All right, so I should be done with this in about 5 minutes or less. So if anybody has any last minute questions, feel free to ask while I'm inking. Lord knows if you ask me something that's a complicated, detailed, thoughtful question, then that will make this take longer than 5 minutes because I'll have to sit there and really think about it. But at this point, I mean, this is the phase of inking where I'm just like, I just jump in and go. And I'm just knocking in all these blacks. I know I said I wanted to put a fade into his hair, but I feel like that actually might be distracting. Yeah, I think this would look better if I just go flat black. His hair. I could go all the way up to the edge, but I think what I'm going to do is do a second layer of textured lines in here just to give a sense of rounding form. You know, when you're drawing something that's light, you want to have it get darker around the edges. When you're drawing something dark, it'll get a little bit lighter around the edges as it's turning towards light. I haven't actually tested that visually to see if it's true, but when inking, it gives me that that sense. So when there is an expression, they say that if it looks right, it is right. Sometimes you do have to bend the rules. Ballpoint says the meaning of life, which is a question mark. Oh no, that I can sum up in just a few minutes. In fact, it's one of the stories I love to tell. I was very, very fortunate in my my 20s. I think it was either after I graduated college or maybe like the year after I graduated college. I had an opportunity to go hear the Dalai Lama speak at UCLA. And when I say I had the opportunity, it was a huge auditorium filled with people to hear the Dalai Lama speak. I just happened to be one of those people. And the Dalai Lama gave this long-ranging conversation about politics and the environment and spirituality. And it was one of those things where he was just sitting lecturing at people. There was a moderator there, so it was like kind of an interview panel where it was a discussion. And at the end, towards the end, before the Q&A, he says, people always ask me, what is the meaning of life? And he says, you want to know what the meaning of life is? I'll tell you. And you can hear in this room full of, I don't know if it held 1,000 people or more than 1,000, but it was definitely hundreds of people crammed into this auditorium. Who knows? So probably, let's just for shits and giggles, let's say it was 1,000 people. And you can hear a hush fall over the room. It's silent. You could hear a pin drop. Because he says, I'm going to tell you what the meaning of life is. Everyone in the room leans forward. And he says, the secret of life is help other people. And if you can't help them, don't hurt them. So there you go. Straight from the Dalai Lama, from my mouth to yours. You didn't expect me to have an actual answer for the meaning of life, did you? See, that one I've got down. I don't necessarily have practicing it down. I try. But, we're all human. We're all fallible creatures. I think I focus more on the don't hurt others than I do on the help. But I do try to help when I can. I think that's the crucial part there, is the when I can, as opposed to period, making helping people a way of life, not just when it's convenient. That, I think, is the true secret. That's sort of the next level of empathy and growth. And like I said, I'm not there yet. But I keep at it. Yeah, ballpoint, in terms, I think in response to not expecting that I had an answer for that, he said, nope. All right. Yeah, I need to knock this ear back. Some hatching as well. And this is just, not even cross-hatching, just simple, same direction. I'm out of practice in making lines feel consistent and thin. But just to make it feel like it's turned away. It's on a surface that's facing away from the viewer. And for a lot of inking, it really is just thinking about what object is facing towards the light, what object is facing away from the light. Now, the challenge in terms of making that aesthetically pleasing, that's something where you have to work that out, or you should work that out in the pencil stage. That's really where you're composing the piece and you're figuring out what it is that you're, because if you just simply render something in terms of this is facing towards the light, this is facing away from the light, you might get something that feels like a physical, real object. It just may not be a particularly attractive picture. The composition part is the penciling part in terms of like trying to make that composition aesthetically pleasing. Whoop. Brush got away from me there. What happens? See, that's actually the downside of the whole thing I was telling you about trying to grip the brush very lightly. You grip it too lightly, it'll just slip out of your hands while you're drawing, which you don't want to be flinging ink all over your table like that. Not recommended. All right. This in, a little bit on the other shoulder, drawing the tie, and we're done. Considering the fact that I spent about 40 minutes just doing test marks, I think I finished this fairly quickly. But this is the reason why I tend not to do sketches at conventions anymore. Because yes, talking to you guys here, I can talk and draw at the same time. But at a convention, there's so much more going on. I'm interacting with like, you know, dozens of people, you know, per hour. And, you know, I'm talking and I'm pitching my book. And I'm talking to people about, you know, different types of comics, and we're talking about like prints that I have for sale, and all of that, the mental load of jumping back and forth between those and then trying to come back and keep drawing. I found that, you know, for everyone who has bought a commission from me at a convention, I am, you know, and we're happy with it. I am happy that you were satisfied with it. I'm rarely satisfied just in terms of it's hard for me to do my best work when I'm working at that level of distraction. And I want every piece I draw to be my best work. So I think I just at a certain point said, you know what, I'm not going to do commission. I'll take commissions at a convention and then finish them at home and mail them to people. You know, it's not something where I just take their money and surprise them. I ask them beforehand, are you okay with me doing that instead of doing the commission for you at a show? Because some people really do, like, the commission sketch is the souvenir from the show. They want to have it drawn at the show and get it while they're there and maybe get a frame for it. But some people are like, I like your art, I would like a piece from you. And if I have to wait for it, that's fine. And for those people, I am happy to do a commission. I just don't do them at the table. And then there's also comic creators who do commissions. They will take the commission at the show. They will go home to their, not home, but they'll go to their hotel room, draw, spend the whole evening, like after the show, like they'll have dinner with their friends and chit chat. And then they come back and just jam on commissions. And then come back the next day and do, you know, do the show all over again, which, you know, again, my buddy Carl Alstetter, workhorse that he is, he'll be up till like 2 or 3 in the morning after a convention doing commissions. Here's the thing, if I'm up till 2 or 3 in the morning, whether I'm drawing or not, I'm going to be in no mood to talk to anyone at a convention that day. So that's the reason why I don't do it that way. It's just because the main thing I look at I'm there for when I'm at a convention is to engage with people, to share my art, and have a pleasant, creative conversation with them at a show. And I certainly can't do that if I am running on like 4 hours sleep. All right. I think that will do it for this guy. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. All right, gang. On that note, we'll wrap it up. This was an extra long one, but I felt like it was worth it because I don't often show you a piece from start to finish. You know, almost always these live streams are me working on something, either starting something or working on something in progress. Maybe over the course of multiple live streams, you may get to see me do something from start to finish. But more often than not, you see me starting a piece or finishing a piece or working on the middle. So, yeah, it's good. I'm happy with it. Hopefully he'll be happy with it too. On that note, again, if you guys, let me get this out of my face. If you guys enjoy these videos and you'd like to get more live streams, you know, and the live streams, the bonus live streams that I do, you know, I'm here for an hour. When I do the live streams for Patreon, they're actually tend to be 2 to 3 hours long. So we do what I call art book study group, where we sit down with a bunch of art books and we just draw straight out of the art book. And I show you the process that I go through for trying to improve my skills and my craft. And meanwhile, you know, we chop it up, we chit chat, you know, BS. I'll answer some questions. We have like a Discord. We have a Discord server, so I'll have the voice channel on, so I can actually talk with patrons while I'm drawing and answer questions. And then, you know, all of that is at patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. There's my monthly newsletter. You sign up, you get a free digital sketchbook. Then once a month, I send out an email to you. It's got work in progress animated GIFs of the latest things that I'm working on. Sometimes it's figure drawings from class. Sometimes it's sketches. Sometimes it's a new art piece. You know, get to see a little bit more behind the scenes of what I'm working on and any new books or artwork that I have to sell. All of that is at newsletter.jeremy.net. And you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. There she blows. There you can pick up physical copies of my comics, or digitally if you read on Kindle or Comixology, or if you're international and you don't want to pay for that hefty shipping. And you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. You can pick up my first book, Eye of the Gods. This is a self-contained graphic novel, psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. You can pick up Volume 1 of Morningstar. It says issues 1 through 4. Again, it's Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. Or you can go to my main personal website. That's just jeremy.net. There you can actually pick up a copy of the final issue of Morningstar, Morningstar issue 8. And again, there's an option there to purchase a sketch cover edition, or I can do a sketch like the one I did here on the back of it for you. So yeah, that's it for now. Everybody, thanks so much for showing up, hanging out. And like I say, I don't say it often enough. If you like these videos, hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed. It'll let you know. If you hit the notification bell, it'll let you know when I've got new live streams coming. So subscribe, hit that like button, share. If you've got other friends that are creatives you think would enjoy these live streams, please share. That helps me grow my channel. You know, having a wider audience allows me to put more time towards creating artwork. I greatly appreciate the time you guys have spent here, the great conversation in the chat, the interesting comments. And if you have other questions or comments later on, for people that are watching the replay, please leave comments on the video. I read the comments. I try to respond to every single one of them. If there are quick questions I can answer, I'll answer them. If there's something that's more complicated or longer, then I can address them in a future live stream. You might be responsible for coming up with the topic for one of the next live streams. So thank you so much. I see Shamara's in here. She says, nice. Thank you. I appreciate it. Ballpoint says, looks great. Thank you guys so much. That's it for now. Go be creative.